The twin suns of Xerion Prime hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the city of Lyranis. Towering spires glimmered with a strange metallic sheen, reflecting colors no human eye had names for. The air hummed with energy, a mixture of electricity and an alien life force that thrived in this advanced world. Ethan Cole stepped off the sleek starship, his boots crunching softly against the polished surface of the landing platform. Around him, the alien court awaited, their forms tall and elegant, their eyes sharp and observing. Ethan was used to first impressions. As a human explorer and diplomat, he had walked into countless new worlds, met species whose biology and minds were utterly alien. He had learned a simple rule: stay calm, observe first, and never let pride guide action. Today that principle would be tested. "Welcome, human," said a voice that was melodic but carried authority. Ethan turned to see the royal entourage approaching. At their head floated Princess Lyra, 19 cycles old, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver and eyes deep enough to make any observer feel small. Her presence alone commanded attention, and yet there was a sharpness in her gaze, a hint of curiosity mixed with something more dangerous: contempt. "Human," she said, her voice clear and cold. "We have heard much about your species. Some say you are clever, others say you are weak. I suppose we shall see which is true." The words were spoken in front of the gathered nobles and advisors. Ethan felt a wave of expectation. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the human's reply. A less experienced diplomat might have tried to defend himself, to match insult with insult. But Ethan merely inclined his head slightly, his expression calm, unreadable. "I am here to learn," he said simply, "and to share what humans can offer." There was a pause. Some of the aliens shifted in discomfort, expecting a fiery human retort. Princess Lyra's lips curled in a faint smirk as if to say, "So the human has no fight in him." "And yet," she continued, voice rising just enough to draw attention, "you walk among us unarmed, unprotected, in the midst of a court that could crush you without effort. Perhaps your species does not even understand courage." The murmur of the crowd grew louder. Eyes turned to Ethan. Some were shocked, others seemed amused. In any alien culture, this was a serious insult. To be called weak in the royal court was a mark that could follow a being for their entire life. Ethan did not flinch. Instead, he took a step back, deliberately creating distance. His movements were slow, controlled. He walked away from the center of attention, toward the edge of the platform where the view of the city's energy spires was breathtaking. His actions startled everyone. Princess Lyra's smirk faltered for a moment. "What are you doing?" she asked, irritation creeping into her voice. Ethan did not turn. "I am observing," he said quietly, "and letting my actions speak louder than words." The crowd gasped. To walk away after an insult was almost unheard of. It was an unspoken challenge to the customs of the court. Whispers spread quickly, even among the highest nobles. He could have retaliated. He could have argued. He chose not to. Why? Lyra felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Curiosity, perhaps, or irritation at being ignored. She had expected anger, or at least some human pride to surface. Instead, she saw composure, discipline, and intelligence. There was strength and restraint, a strength her court had long overlooked. Ethan reached the balcony's edge and looked out at the city. The twin suns reflected on the spires, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that no human painter could capture. He allowed himself a moment of admiration. Exploration was not only about politics or survival, it was about seeing the universe in its full glory. "Why doesn't he respond?" whispered one of the alien counselors to another. "Is he weak, or is he smarter than us?" "Perhaps humans are different," said the second. "Perhaps they fight in ways we do not understand." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Different," she said softly, almost to herself. "We shall see if different survives in our world." The ceremony resumed. though the mood had shifted. No longer was the audience merely witnessing an insult. They were watching a human who refused to be provoked, who carried dignity like armor. Some young nobles looked impressed. Some elders frowned, questioning the human's motives. Ethan moved back toward the main pavilion, but he kept his distance from Lyra. He could sense her eyes on him, measuring him. In that moment, he understood that respect was not given. It was earned. And on this planet, respect among the powerful was worth more than any weapon. As the day progressed, Ethan observed everything. He watched the royal guards practice with advanced energy weapons, their movements precise and deadly. He watched the scholars debate theories of physics and biology far beyond human knowledge. And he watched Princess Lyra, who seemed capable of thinking several steps ahead, commanding her court with ease. Dinner was a strange affair. Humans and aliens shared a table, though Ethan noticed subtle differences. The aliens ate with delicate instruments, almost ritualistic, while he used basic utensils. Yet conversation flowed. Lyra made occasional remarks, her tone sharp but not unkind, testing him with every word. "You must find our cuisine." "Unusual," she said with a faint smirk. "It is different, but I enjoy learning," Ethan replied. Curiosity is what allows humans to survive in new worlds. The words were simple, but they carried weight, in an alien society where tradition was strict. Acknowledging difference without insult was a subtle act of power. Lyra studied him closely, her expression unreadable. After dinner, Ethan was shown to his quarters in the royal palace. The room was vast, with a high ceiling that opened to the sky through transparent panels. Light from the twin suns poured in, illuminating alien architecture and art in ways humans had never imagined. As he unpacked, Ethan reflected on the day. He had arrived expecting diplomacy and perhaps minor challenges. Instead, he had faced insult and intrigue. Walking away had been his choice, not cowardice. It was a deliberate display of patience and intelligence. Outside, the city of Lyranus sparkled under the stars. Ethan could hear distant sounds, hovering vehicles, the hum of energy fields, and the occasional cry of alien wildlife. He felt small, yet strangely empowered. Being human in this universe meant being underestimated, yes, but also having the chance to prove worth in ways the universe did not expect. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra lingered in her chamber, replaying the encounter. She had insulted the human expecting a reaction, yet he had done something far more powerful. Walking away had not been weakness. It had been a statement, one that unsettled the royal court and piqued her curiosity. Who is he, really? She whispered to herself. And why does he not fight me as I expected? In the quiet of the palace, a subtle tension formed. Ethan Cole was not just a visitor. He was a challenge, one that would test tradition, pride, and perhaps the very perception of humans in this alien world. Little did either of them know, this was only the beginning. The first test had been walked away from, but the real challenges lay ahead, in intelligence, strategy, and courage. And in each, humans would show strengths that few aliens could anticipate. As the night deepened, Ethan looked at the twin moons of Xerion Prime and made a silent promise. He would navigate this world not with anger or pride, but with dignity, wit, and patience. He would earn respect the way humans always did, through action, not words. And somewhere deep within the palace, Princess Lyra began to reconsider everything she thought she knew about humans. The next morning, Xerion Prime's twin suns rose over the metallic city of Lyranis, casting long shadows that danced across the palace walls. Ethan Cole awoke in his quarters, the soft hum of alien energy resonating through the walls. Today would be different. He could feel it. Princess Lyra had not forgotten his calm response, or lack of response, to her insult. The court whispered about him still. Some admired him, others were skeptical. A soft chime announced the arrival of his escort. Two alien aides, tall and slender with luminous skin, appeared at the door. "Human, you are requested in the Hall of Strategy," one said. Her voice carried polite authority, yet a hint of curiosity. Ethan nodded and followed them through long corridors of polished metal, past art and architecture that seemed to defy gravity. He marveled at the sophistication of Zirian Prime, but he reminded himself to stay focused. The day promised tests that went far beyond etiquette. The Hall of Strategy was enormous, with walls of translucent crystal that displayed simulations of battlefields, planetary systems, and complex energy grids. At the center of the room, Princess Lyra awaited, her posture regal, yet there was a flicker of impatience in her eyes. Around her, the young nobles and strategists of the court gathered, eager to witness the human's abilities. "Human," Lyra said, her voice clear and sharp. "Today you will undergo a series of trials. These trials will test your intelligence, your strategy, and your courage. Fail, and your species' reputation suffers. Succeed, and perhaps I may consider humans worthy of our attention." The tone was mocking, yet Ethan noticed something subtle. She expected more than mere survival. She expected ingenuity, cleverness, a mind that could adapt. That suited him perfectly. "I am ready," Ethan said calmly. Lyra's first challenge was simple in appearance but devious in design, a puzzle of alien origin. A three-dimensional lattice floated before him, glowing with shifting energy patterns. Humans had nothing like it, yet Ethan studied it carefully. He observed the structure, the connections, the repeating patterns. Minutes passed. The nobles whispered, among themselves predicting failure. Some younger strategists looked uneasy, unsure if the human could succeed. Ethan, however, worked steadily. His fingers hovered over the controls and slowly, deliberately, he began to manipulate the lattice. He traced hidden patterns, recognized the logic embedded in the alien technology, and finally, with a gentle press of a button, the structure aligned perfectly. A soft hum of approval resonated through the hall. Silence followed. The nobles stared. Princess Lyra's eyes widened for a brief moment before she quickly composed herself. "You solved it," she said, voice tight. "I did not think a human could comprehend our lattice puzzles." Ethan bowed slightly. Curiosity and observation can overcome unfamiliarity. Humans survive because we learn quickly and adapt. A few nobles nodded in approval. Murmurs of admiration spread like wildfire. For the first time, some began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Lyra's next challenge was a test of strategy. A holographic battlefield appeared, showing a simulated skirmish between two alien factions. The task: command one side and defeat the opponent in as few moves as possible. Ethan studied the battlefield. The alien soldiers were faster, their weapons more advanced. Many humans might have panicked, but Ethan relied on human ingenuity. He observed patterns, predicted movements, and employed unconventional strategies, traps and diversions, creating openings that the aliens had never anticipated. The holographic enemies fell one by one in a stunning display of strategy. When the simulation ended, the hall erupted in quiet applause. Even the older strategists looked impressed, exchanging glances as though reassessing everything they knew about Earthlings. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. She had expected to overwhelm the human with advanced tactics, yet he had turned her challenge into a demonstration of his intelligence and flexibility. "You are clever," she admitted, though her tone carried a mixture of irritation and respect. "Clever enough to survive. For now." The final challenge of the day was physical, a demonstration of courage. Ethan was led to the floating arenas, a vast space suspended above the city, where the royal family tested the abilities of soldiers and prodigies alike. Platforms hovered in midair, connected by shifting energy bridges. Lasers crisscrossed the gaps, ready to test balance, timing, and nerve. Lyra watched from above, her eyes sharp. "This will not be easy," she said. "I want to see if you can face danger without fear, human." Ethan stepped onto the first platform. The gap ahead pulsed with energy, a bridge that shifted in rhythm with an alien algorithm. One wrong step would send him tumbling into the void below. He focused. Humans were not naturally the strongest in this universe, but humans had resilience, creativity, and courage. He timed his steps, adjusted for rhythm, and moved forward with precision. Midway, an obstacle shifted unexpectedly. A sudden energy barrier appeared. Without hesitation, Ethan leapt to the side, using his momentum to cross safely. The crowd gasped. Even the young nobles were impressed. He continued, each platform presenting new challenges, moving energy walls, shifting floors, and simulated alien predators designed to test agility. Yet Ethan's calm, careful approach allowed him to advance, further than anyone expected. By the time he reached the final platform, even Princess Lyra seemed almost uncertain of her next words. "You survived," she said, her voice almost begrudging. "You are more capable than I gave humans credit for." Ethan stood tall, breathing evenly. "Courage is not the absence of fear," he said. "It is the ability to act despite it." Lyra's eyes softened slightly. This human did not boast, did not seek glory. He acted with intelligence and purpose. A new realization began to form in her mind. Perhaps humans had strengths that went beyond raw power or advanced technology. By the end of the day, Ethan had not only passed the tests, but he had also shifted the court's perception. The nobles began to murmur with excitement and speculation. Could humans truly be worthy allies or even equals? As the sun set over Lyranus, painting the metallic spires in shades of gold and crimson, Lyra watched Ethan walk away from the arenas, just as he had walked away from her insult days before. She did not understand it completely. The human did not seek to impress, did not react with anger or pride. He simply moved forward, solving problems and facing challenges with quiet strength. The palace echoed with conversation that evening. "I underestimated him," one young noble whispered. "He is not just clever, he is patient and fearless." "Yes," another replied. "Humans are unpredictable. That is their strength." Lyra remained in her chambers, pacing slowly. She could not shake the feeling that this human, with his calm demeanor and unexpected abilities, was more than a visitor. He was a force, subtle but undeniable, and he had already begun to leave a mark on GalacticPrime. Ethan, meanwhile, returned to his quarters, taking time to rest and reflect. Today had been a test not only for him, but for the court as well. They had underestimated humans, assumed weakness, and yet humans had shown resilience, intelligence, and courage. He looked out over the city, the twin moons beginning to rise in the sky, casting silver light over the spires. Humans had long been underestimated in the universe, and yet each time, they had found ways to survive and thrive. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps even greater than those faced today. But he felt ready. He had proven that humans could think, adapt, and endure. And somewhere deep in the palace, Princess Lyra realized something important. She had insulted the human, expecting anger or humiliation. Instead, she had witnessed composure, ingenuity, and courage, the very qualities her court valued yet sometimes overlooked. "Perhaps," she whispered to herself, "this human is teaching me a lesson about humans, about strength, and about patience." As night fell over Lyranus, a quiet tension filled the air. The challenge had ended for now, but the true test was only beginning. Ethan Cole had arrived as a visitor, but he was quickly becoming a figure to be watched, respected, and perhaps even feared, not for his power, but for his intelligence, courage, and calm resolve. And on GalacticPrime, where tradition and pride often ruled, such a force was rare indeed. The city of Lyranus was alive with energy. Floating vehicles moved between spires, lights shimmered on metallic surfaces, and distant sounds of alien life filled the streets. Ethan Cole moved through the corridors of the royal palace, escorted by silent aides. Today the trials would test more than intelligence and courage. They would test his ability to think under pressure in situations designed to overwhelm even the most experienced beings. He entered the floating arenas, a vast, open expanse above the city. Platforms hovered in midair, connected by shifting bridges of light. The arena was designed not just for combat, but for strategy, agility, and endurance. Humans had no natural advantage here, yet Ethan observed calmly. His eyes scanned every detail, the timing of the shifting bridges, the positioning of energy barriers, even the patterns in which hovering drones patrolled the arena. Princess Lyra stood on a high platform above him, arms crossed. "Today," she said, her voice echoing, "you will face the ultimate test. Many of our finest strategists have failed here. Many have been pushed beyond their limits. Let us see if humans can survive, and perhaps even excel." Ethan did not respond. He had learned that silence often carried more power than words. The first challenge was immediate. A series of platforms appeared, each separated by gaps filled with energy streams. If miscalculated, one could fall into the void. Ethan moved cautiously, timing each step to match the rhythm of the shifting bridges. When a sudden laser wall appeared, he ducked low and rolled forward, landing safely on the next platform. His actions were deliberate, efficient, precise. The audience gasped. Aliens were used to displays of raw power, but Ethan's strength was something different. It was intellect applied to action, calmness under pressure. As he progressed, obstacles grew more complex. Hovering drones emitted beams of light, scanning for movement. One misstep could trigger alarms or worse. Ethan analyzed their patterns and predicted the timing of their movements. He moved carefully, weaving through the beams, sometimes pausing to let a drone pass, other times moving quickly to avoid detection. Some of the younger nobles began to murmur. "He anticipates every move," one said. "It is as if he can see the arena before it happens." "Humans are unpredictable," another replied. "That is their advantage." Princess Lyra's eyes narrowed. This human did not rely on strength or technology. He relied on intelligence, patience, and observation. And the more she watched, the more she realized that humans might possess a quality the Xerians lacked: adaptability under pressure. The arena's next stage was a simulated combat scenario. Holographic enemies appeared, humanoid in shape but clearly alien. They wielded energy weapons and moved with speed and precision beyond normal human capability. Most humans would have panicked. Ethan's heart raced, but his mind remained clear. He observed patterns in the holographic attackers' movements. Each had a predictable rhythm, an opening that could be exploited. Instead of confronting them directly, he used diversion. He triggered a trap on one side, causing the holographic enemies to cluster together, then moved swiftly through the opening. One by one, he neutralized the projections using timing, positioning, and improvisation. The crowd erupted in quiet astonishment. Even the palace guards trained for combat and aware of the simulations whispered to one another. "He is human," one said. "And yet he fights like a strategist, not a warrior." Lyra's lips pressed together. Her challenge had been to test courage, and yet Ethan had shown something more: calm courage combined with strategic thinking. For the first time, she considered that humans might be more than she had assumed, more than weak, more than fragile. The final stage of the arena was a direct confrontation. Ethan faced a robotic opponent, a machine designed to anticipate and counter any human move. Its energy limbs glowed bright blue, and it moved faster than any human could naturally react. Ethan studied it. He could not match it in speed, but he could predict patterns. When it lunged forward, he sidestepped. When it swung again, he rolled and used momentum to trip the machine slightly. Each movement was calculated. Each action was deliberate. Slowly, the opponent faltered, its systems unable to adapt to unpredictable, intelligent movement. The audience watched in stunned silence. A human was not supposed to withstand the arena, let alone outmaneuver a robotic combatant designed by the Xerians' top engineers. Yet here he was, intact, focused and steadily advancing. Finally, the robot collapsed, its systems temporarily shut down. Ethan stood upright, breathing evenly. Princess Lyra's gaze was fixed on him. For the first time, she removed the faint mask of pride she had carried. "You," she said slowly, "are nothing like I expected." Ethan tilted his head slightly, respectful, but calm. "I act in ways humans know best," he said. "With patience, observation, and intelligence. Strength is not always about power. Sometimes it is about thinking, adapting, and enduring." A murmur went through the court. Some nobles were impressed, some skeptical, but all had to acknowledge his abilities. Lyra moved closer, her expression serious now. "You have survived the arena, human. You have navigated obstacles, outsmarted opponents, and faced danger with composure. Tell me, what is it that drives you?" Ethan paused. "Humans survive because we must. We explore because curiosity demands it. We act because we believe in understanding, in learning, in making choices that matter. Courage and intelligence together are our greatest strengths." Lyra considered his words. There was a simplicity to them, yet also profound truth. Her species often relied on inherited power, advanced technology, and tradition. Humans relied on choice, and that choice, guided by intelligence and courage, had brought Ethan through every test she had devised. "You have earned some measure of respect," she admitted. "Not because I wish to give it, but because you have shown it is deserved." Ethan inclined his head slightly. "Respect is earned through actions, not titles or words." Lyra's eyes softened, though her pride still burned quietly. She had insulted him days ago, expecting anger or humiliation. Instead, she had witnessed patience, ingenuity, and courage. It unsettled her, challenged her assumptions about humans, and left a strange admiration in its place. As the day ended, the floating arenas emptied. Ethan returned to the palace quietly, unhurried, observing the city below. The sun began to set, turning the metal spires into streams of gold and crimson. Back in her chambers, Lyra could not stop thinking about him. She had challenged him with intelligence, strategy, and courage, expecting him to fail or falter. Instead, he had excelled. "Why is he different?" she whispered to herself. "Not stronger, not faster, yet he surpasses every expectation. Perhaps humans are something more than I imagined." Ethan, in his quarters, reviewed the day's events calmly. Each challenge had been a test, yes, but also a learning opportunity. Humans had long been underestimated in the universe, and yet they had survived, thrived, and adapted. Today had shown not just survival, but superiority in ways aliens did not expect. He thought of the next challenges. The trials of intellect and courage were only the beginning. Political intrigue, hidden agendas, and unexpected dangers awaited on SciFi-Prime. But he felt ready. Humans survived because they learned, adapted, and acted with courage. And somewhere, high in the palace, Princess Lyra began to reconsider everything she thought she knew about humans. She had underestimated them, insulted them. Yet a human had walked through her challenges without fear, without arrogance, and with intelligence far beyond what she expected. Tomorrow she would face him again, not with insult, but perhaps with respect, curiosity, and the faintest shadow of admiration. But tonight, the palace of Lyranus was quiet. The stars reflected off the metallic city. Ethan Cole, human explorer, had proven that intellect, courage, and patience could overcome assumptions, technology, and alien expectations. The morning air in Lyranus was cool, carrying a faint metallic scent from the city below. Ethan Cole moved through the palace halls with calm precision, his senses alert to even the smallest irregularity. Over the past days, he had faced challenges, puzzles, and the floating arenas. Yet, as he had learned, intelligence and courage were only half of survival on SciFi-Prime. The other half was understanding the motives of those around you. Princess Lyra awaited him in a high gallery overlooking the city. Her eyes were sharp, but there was a shadow of unease. She had witnessed Ethan excel in every challenge, and though she had hidden it behind pride, she now saw him as more than a mere visitor. "Human," she said, voice steady, "today is not a test of skill. Today you will see the world behind the facade, the world where decisions are made that affect entire planets. Are you prepared?" Ethan inclined his head. "Humans survive because we seek understanding. I am ready to learn." Lyra studied him for a moment, then gestured for him to follow. They moved through winding corridors that led deep into the Royal Archives, a place few outsiders were permitted. The walls were lined with ancient records, glowing with holographic data and inscriptions in alien scripts. The archives contained secrets of the monarchy, knowledge accumulated over millennia, and the silent power that guided the empire. As they walked, Lyra explained, "Not all in the court serve the empire honestly. Some seek personal gain, using the strength of GalacticPrime to advance their own ambitions. You must understand this, human, because survival depends on seeing clearly, sometimes even more than acting quickly." Ethan listened carefully. Humans, like aliens, could face danger from those who wielded power irresponsibly. Recognizing motives, anticipating betrayal, and acting ethically were as crucial as strength or intelligence. They reached a section of the archives few had entered. Lyra activated a console, revealing holographic projections of meetings, correspondences, and secret plans. Ethan scanned the images carefully, analyzing relationships, allegiances, and potential conflicts. "Here," Lyra said, pointing to a sequence of communications between high-ranking nobles, "is a faction planning to provoke conflict with Earth. Their goal is to expand influence and control, regardless of the consequences for humans, or even innocent Xerians." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The plan was subtle, hidden beneath layers of diplomacy and deception, but humans had a long history of detecting patterns, anticipating consequences, and acting decisively to prevent harm. "This faction seeks to create a war," Ethan said. "If they succeed, countless lives will be lost unnecessarily. Their ambition blinds them to morality and reason." Lyra studied him. "Humans speak of morality as though it has value in all worlds, but here, power often outweighs principle." "Morality," Ethan replied, "is the guiding principle that allows civilization to endure. Strength without ethics leads to destruction, not survival." Lyra considered his words, realizing their truth. In GalacticPrime, tradition and hierarchy often masked unethical ambitions. Ethan's human perspective, simple yet profound, allowed him to see what many within the palace ignored. Together, they devised a plan. Using discretion, observation, and strategy, they would expose the faction without triggering open conflict. Ethan suggested subtle moves, leaks of information, careful positioning, and leveraging the trust of neutral parties within the court. Over several hours they implemented the plan. Ethan navigated the archives, tracing communications, identifying key figures, and predicting their next moves. Lyra facilitated access to restricted areas, introduced Ethan to trusted allies, and maintained her position as a royal observer. The faction, confident in their secrecy, began to act. They moved troops, sent messages to hidden agents, and prepared provocations. Yet Ethan anticipated each step. He identified weak points in their logic, inconsistencies in their communications, and gaps in their security. When the faction attempted to escalate the conflict, Ethan and Lyra intervened. They presented evidence to the Emperor and senior advisors, proof of deceit, manipulation, and illegal plans. The faction's schemes unraveled. Their agents were recalled or detained, and their influence diminished. The court was in shock. Humans were not expected to understand such subtlety, to anticipate political machinations, and to act ethically in ways that outsmarted seasoned nobles. Ethan had done more than survive challenges. He had prevented a potential war. Lyra watched him closely. She felt a mix of respect and disbelief. The human had demonstrated intelligence, courage, and ethical reasoning, qualities that even the most esteemed Xerians sometimes lacked. You, she said quietly, are unlike any visitor I have encountered. You act not for pride or power, but for understanding and justice. Humans, perhaps you are worthy of trust after all. Ethan inclined his head. Trust is earned through action, not titles or promises. Today was about preventing harm. That is the choice humans make when we see injustice. The Emperor, a figure of towering presence and calm authority, approached. I have reviewed the evidence, he said, voice deep and resonant. It is clear that this human has shown wisdom and insight far beyond what we anticipated. The court owes him acknowledgement. Lyra's eyes softened further. She had begun as a critic, a skeptic, even an instigator of challenges. Yet now she recognized the human as a figure of integrity and capability. In the following days, Ethan continued his observation of the court. He noted alliances forming, rivalries dissolving, and subtle shifts in influence. Humans, he reflected, could survive and thrive not only through strength, but by understanding the motives of others, by applying ethics and intelligence where others relied solely on power. Lyra, meanwhile, found herself increasingly intrigued. She began to consult Ethan on minor matters, asking his opinion on ethical dilemmas and strategic decisions. Each time, his perspective offered clarity, a simplicity that cut through complexity and pride. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra spoke quietly. I misjudged you, human. I thought you were fragile, perhaps even foolish. Yet you have shown intelligence, courage, and judgment that surpasses many of my peers. Ethan smiled faintly. Humans have always survived against the odds. We adapt, learn, and act with consideration. Strength alone is never enough. Lyra looked at him with a new understanding. Perhaps humans are not just visitors in the universe. Perhaps you are partners, allies, even equals. The realization was slow but profound. In the court of GalacticPrime, where pride and tradition often outweighed reason, a human had demonstrated not only survival, but moral and strategic superiority. Ethan had changed the perception of his species. No longer was he merely a visitor. He was a human who had earned trust, shown courage, and prevented disaster, all through intellect, patience, and ethical action. As night fell, the palace glittered under twin moons. The city below shimmered with energy and light. Ethan stood at a balcony, looking out at the vast expanse of Lyranus. He thought of Earth, of the human capacity to endure, to adapt, to act for the greater good. Somewhere behind him, Lyra watched, silently. She had begun to respect him not for his victory and challenges, but for the wisdom he displayed in navigating a world filled with ambition, deception, and danger. The revelation was clear. Humans were not merely observers in the universe. They were capable of understanding, strategy, courage, and ethical reasoning, qualities that could influence even the most advanced alien civilizations. And on GalacticPrime, that influence had begun quietly, yet undeniably. Ethan turned from the balcony, ready for whatever came next. Challenges, intrigue, and tests of courage would continue. But he knew this. Humans endured not by arrogance or force alone, but through intelligence, morality, and resilience. And that truth had already begun to reshape the royal court. Lyra, in her chambers, reflected on the events of the day. The human had navigated political intrigue, uncovered hidden schemes, and acted ethically to prevent conflict. She realized that strength without wisdom was limited, but intelligence combined with courage and morality could change the course of history. The palace was quiet, but the change had begun. Humans, underestimated and dismissed, had shown their worth, and as Ethan rested, preparing for the next challenges, the court of GalacticPrime began to see that humans were not merely visitors. They were forces of intellect, courage, and moral power, capable of influencing events in ways no one had expected. Tomorrow would bring new trials. Yet for the first time, Princess Lyra approached them not with mockery or disdain, but with respect and curiosity. The human had walked into their world quietly, without arrogance or insult, And in doing so, he had already changed it. The twin suns of Zirion Prime rose over Lyranus, reflecting off the metallic spires with dazzling brilliance. Ethan Cole walked through the palace corridors, calm and deliberate as ever. Over the past days, he had faced insult, challenge, and intrigue. Today, he would see the results of his actions, not just for himself, but for humans as a species. Princess Lyra awaited him in the royal council chamber. Her eyes were steady, but there was a subtle warmth in them now. No longer did she look at him with disdain or mockery. She looked at him with curiosity, and perhaps for the first time, respect. "Human," she said, her voice calm. "The court has deliberated. Your actions have been unprecedented. You have navigated challenges, uncovered deceit, and acted with wisdom and courage. For that, you have earned the respect of many." Ethan inclined his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. "Respect is earned through action, not words or titles," he said. "Humans strive to act with understanding and fairness wherever we go." Lyra nodded. "Indeed. And through your actions, you have taught us a lesson. That strength alone is not enough. Intelligence, courage, and moral integrity are equally powerful." Over the past several days, the court had shifted subtly. Nobles who had once doubted humans now whispered in admiration. Advisors who had dismissed the envoy now sought Ethan's opinions. The evidence of human ethics, courage, and intelligence could not be ignored. The first ceremony of the day was simple yet symbolic. The Emperor of Zirion Prime gathered representatives of the court to acknowledge Ethan's contributions. He spoke with calm authority. "Ethan Cole, human of Earth, you have demonstrated qualities rare even among our kind: intelligence, courage, and integrity. You have prevented disaster through careful action, and in doing so, you have proven that humans are not merely visitors but capable partners in the universe." The chamber erupted in respectful applause. Ethan remained composed, aware that the recognition was not for him personally, but for the principles humans represented: patience, intelligence, and ethical action. Lyra approached him privately after the ceremony. "I misjudged you," she admitted, her tone sincere. "I thought your species was weak, unprepared for the challenges of the stars. I was wrong. Humans possess strengths that even my kind underestimates. You have my respect, Ethan." "Respect must be mutual to be meaningful," Ethan replied. "I respect Zirion Prime and its people. I hope our actions together can foster trust between our worlds." Lyra's eyes softened. For the first time, she saw humans not as fragile creatures to be tested or insulted, but as intelligent, resilient, and ethical beings capable of shaping the future alongside her people. Over the following days, Ethan worked with Lyra and other trusted members of the court to establish stronger communication between Earth and Zirion Prime. Plans were made to exchange knowledge, collaborate on exploration, and share technology responsibly. Humans would bring creativity, ethical decision-making, and adaptability, while Zirions contributed advanced technology and experience in interstellar governance. It was an unprecedented partnership. Aliens who had once dismissed humans now recognized their potential. The stories of Ethan's calm response to insult, his clever strategies, and his moral judgment spread through the city and the Empire, inspiring a new respect for humanity. One afternoon, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lyra spoke softly. "I have learned much from you, Ethan. Not just about humans, but about perspective, patience, and how to measure strength. It is not in weapons or dominance, but in understanding and wise action." Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans have survived because we adapt, we learn, and we act with purpose. It is the same principle that guides all species to endure in the universe." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the silver light of Zirion Prime's twin moons. "Perhaps our worlds are destined to be allies, not rivals." That evening, Ethan returned to his quarters, reflecting on the events of the past days. He had arrived, expecting challenges and possible conflict, yet he had achieved something far greater: the seeds of trust and respect between humans and an alien civilization that had long underestimated them. He looked out at the city below, Energy spires glowed softly, casting a calm light over the bustling metropolis. Humans had often been underestimated across the universe, dismissed for their size, their technology, or their inexperience. Yet they endured. They adapted. They survived. And in doing so, they gained respect, not through force but through intellect, courage, and moral action. Meanwhile, Princess Lyra observed from her balcony, thinking about the human before her. The young royal had intended to challenge him to assert dominance, yet she had been taught a lesson instead, a lesson in humility, in observation, and in the power of calm strength. The next morning, a ceremony marked the official recognition of the new alliance between Earth and GalacticPrime. Ethan spoke before a gathering of nobles, scientists, and explorers. Our species have different strengths, he said. Humans bring creativity, courage, and ethical reasoning. Xerians bring technology, experience, and wisdom. Together, we can explore the universe, solve problems, and create opportunities for peace and progress. The audience responded with a mix of applause and nods of approval. Humans were no longer the underestimated visitors. They were recognized as capable, intelligent partners in interstellar society. Princess Lyra approached him afterward, placing a hand lightly on his arm. You have changed my perspective, Ethan. Humans are stronger than I imagined, not in muscle or weapons, but in mind, heart, and determination. I hope this is only the beginning of our work together. Ethan nodded. It is. Understanding and trust are the foundation for all progress. If we build on them, our worlds can achieve much together. The days that followed were filled with collaboration. Human engineers worked alongside Xerian scientists, sharing ideas and learning new technologies. Diplomatic channels opened, allowing for cultural exchange and mutual growth. Even ordinary citizens of GalacticPrime began to speak of humans with curiosity and admiration, rather than dismissiveness. Lyra, now a willing partner and observer, guided Ethan through the complexities of court politics, sharing insights that only a native could know. Together, they identified ways humans could help, ways Xerians could learn, and ways both civilizations could thrive. One evening, standing atop the palace balcony and looking at the city bathed in the silver light of twin moons, Ethan reflected on what had begun with a simple insult. Walking away had not been cowardice. It had been a choice to observe, understand, and act with intelligence and patience. Princess Lyra joined him, her expression contemplative. You walked away the first day, she said softly. I thought it was weakness. I see now. It was strength. Strength that changed the course of our court and perhaps our worlds. Ethan smiled faintly. Strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it is in action. Sometimes it is in restraint. Humans have survived because we know the difference. Lyra nodded. And perhaps now, humans and Xerians can survive and thrive, together not through force or fear but through understanding, trust, and collaboration. The human had walked into a foreign world quietly, without arrogance or insult. Yet through intelligence, courage, and moral action, he had earned respect, forged alliances, and opened doors that many had thought closed. Ethan turned to look at the city, thinking of Earth, of the countless challenges humanity had faced, and of the potential that lay ahead. He knew this was only the beginning. Trust and understanding were fragile, yet powerful, and if nurtured, they could shape the future of civilizations across the stars. Princess Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. I underestimated your kind, she said, but now I see that humans are not merely visitors. You are allies, thinkers, and survivors. I hope we continue to learn from one another. Ethan nodded. That is all any human can hope for, to act wisely, learn from experience, and build bridges where others see walls. The twin moons reflected off the metallic city, casting a serene glow over the palace. Humans had arrived on GalacticPrime as outsiders. They had faced insult, challenge, and intrigue, and they had emerged not just unbroken, but respected, admired, and trusted. In the quiet of the palace night, a new era began. An era where humans were no longer underestimated. An era where intelligence, courage, and ethical action had earned them a place among the stars. Ethan Cole had walked away from insult, faced impossible challenges, and navigated the complexities of an alien world. In doing so, he had shown the universe what humans were capable of: resilience, intelligence, courage, and moral strength.